They say you can tell how strong someone is by who stands with them. But what about the ones who walk with nobody? What about the woman who wakes up every day and doesn't have a circle cheering her on? Doesn't have sisters hyping her up, doesn't have a crew protecting her? What about the woman who only hears her own voice echoing back at her in the silence? People look at her like she's missing something, like loneliness equals weakness, like not having friends means she's incomplete. But they don't understand the kind of power that's built in that isolation. They don't understand that when you've got nobody to lean on, you learn how to stand taller. When you got nobody to clap for you, you learn how to clap for yourself. And when the world writes you off because you're walking alone, you learn how to write your own story. This isn't about pity, this is about respect. Because a woman with no friends isn't broken, she's battle tested. She's not invisible, she's unstoppable. And if you listen close, you'll realize her silence carries more weight than most people's noise. Self-reliance for a woman with no friends is not just about living without people to lean on. It's about building a mindset where you become your own first line of defense, your own backup plan, your own source of energy. When someone grows up or moves through life without the safety net of a social circle, she learns quickly that waiting for someone to show up for her is a waste of time. She learns the art of pulling herself out of dark moments, of being her own motivator when the world stays quiet, of being her own cheerleader when there's nobody clapping. It's not just survival, it's sculpting a character that can't be broken by silence. That's what self-reliance does. It creates a force within that doesn't need applause, doesn't need validation, and doesn't beg for recognition. A woman with no friends builds skills most people overlook. She becomes sharp at reading energy, not because she's around people often, but because when she does step into a room, she can sense quickly who's real and who's fake. Time alone makes her sensitive to patterns, and that sensitivity saves her from betrayal. Self-reliance trains her to move with caution, but also with confidence, because she knows her judgment is all she's got. Some might see her as distant, but the truth is, she's calculating. She knows that letting the wrong person in could break the little stability she's built for herself, so she masters the art of being whole within her own skin, not waiting for anyone else to complete her. She learns that money, resources, and even basic needs hit different when you're the only one responsible for them. When you've got friends, you might call someone to spot you, to lend a hand, to give advice. But when you're truly alone, you have no option but to figure it out. That pressure turns into growth. Bills get paid because you hustle harder. Problems get solved because you research longer. Goals get chased because nobody else is there to push you. Self-reliance means becoming disciplined out of necessity. She learns routine, she learns order, she learns how to move without excuses, because excuses don't hold her up. Action does. Emotionally, self-reliance is another level. People underestimate how heavy silence feels when it's not by choice. She might crave someone to vent to, someone to laugh with, someone to check on her, but when that doesn't exist, she learns how to sit with her thoughts without crumbling. She journals, she meditates, she works out, she creates, or she finds whatever method it takes to release the weight. That emotional independence becomes armor. While others might spiral when left alone, she thrives in it. She knows how to process pain privately and how to turn it into motivation. She knows her breakdowns don't have an audience, so she finds a way to turn every breakdown into a breakthrough. And in the world, people can sense it. A woman with self-reliance carries an aura that demands respect. She doesn't chase approval, so her energy feels solid. She doesn't laugh at every joke or fold under pressure just to belong. She stands in her truth because she's been alone with her truth for years. She doesn't need to rehearse it. It's who she is. People might label her cold or hard, but the reality is that her warmth is reserved for people who actually earn it. Because she doesn't need friends to survive, she chooses connections carefully, and that choice makes her relationships deeper, even if they are few. Self-reliance also means she sets her own definition of success. Without a circle of friends to compare herself to, she has to figure out her own measurement. She learns not to care about trends, gossip, or what everybody else is doing. Her goals are personal. Her path is custom. That independence in thought is rare. While most people get trapped in the noise of the crowd, she moves on her own rhythm, and that rhythm takes her places others can't even see. It's not easy because the road feels lonely at times, but it's real, and real always lasts longer than fate. The beauty of self-reliance is that it plants a seed of unshakable confidence. If you've spent years surviving with nobody to back you, then every win feels sweeter. Every milestone feels like proof. Proof that you don't need to be carried to the finish line. Proof that you can be your own engine. That confidence doesn't come from compliments or likes or attention. It comes from results. It comes from knowing you fail and still back up. Knowing you lost and still played again. Knowing you broke and still build yourself back. Self-reliance breeds that kind of pride. The kind you can't buy, can't fake, and can't steal. In time, that kind of woman becomes an example. People who once looked down on her start to wonder how she made it through. People who never noticed her strength start to admire it. And though she may not have friends in a traditional sense, she inspires others silently, showing them that being alone is not the same as being weak. It's proof that the greatest ally you'll ever have is the one you see in the mirror. And once you master that, no amount of isolation can stop you from moving forward. Resilience for a woman with no friends, it's not something she chooses, it's something she develops out of necessity. When the phone doesn't ring, when there's no shoulder to cry on, when there's nobody to catch her fall, she learns to bounce back from the ground quicker than most. The world will test her with loneliness, with setbacks, with situations that could break anybody else, but because she has nobody to rely on, she becomes her own rebound. Resilience becomes her language, her identity, her shield. It's not about pretending she doesn't hurt. It's about refusing to stay down when she does. Every scar becomes a lesson. Every tear becomes fuel. Every loss becomes part of her blueprint. A woman with no friends faces battles people rarely see. The nights are long, the doubts get heavy, and the temptations to give up creep in. But resilience grows when she survives those nights without an audience. There's no comfort squad texting her to keep going, no group chat hyping her up, no friend pulling her through. She's left with herself, her thoughts, her fears, and the fight to keep breathing through all of it. That fight is where resilience is born. She teaches herself to accept pain, not run from it, and she learns how to mold it into strength. Pain becomes her trainer, silence becomes her teacher, and every challenge becomes a rehearsal for greatness. Life has a way of throwing storms at those who look alone, almost like testing how much they can carry. For a woman with no friends, resilience means weathering storms without umbrellas, without safe houses, without backup. She learns to stand under the rain and let it wash her, knowing she'll come out cleaner, sharper, and stronger. People who've always had support fold when storms hit because they're not used to the weight. But she's been carrying her own weight since day one, so the storm doesn't break her, it conditions her. Resilience is not about never falling, it's about standing taller after each fall, and that's what she embodies. This type of resilience creates a different kind of confidence. It's not loud, it's not flashy, it doesn't need to be spoken. It's in the way she walks into a room, the way her eyes tell stories of battles nobody else knows about. She doesn't need to brag about overcoming because her energy already carries the proof. People sense it. They feel that she's unshakable, that she's not the type to crumble under pressure. That vibe alone earns respect because resilience can't be faked. You can buy clothes, cars, attention, but you can't buy the ability to recover after life hits you. That comes only from surviving it over and over. And resilience also shapes her choices. When you've been knocked down and had to pick yourself up repeatedly, you start to value time differently. You stop chasing temporary highs or temporary people. She knows the difference between distractions and investments because her resilience sharpens her perspective. She doesn't waste energy on things that won't matter tomorrow because she knows how much energy it takes just to rebuild herself. She learns to conserve her spirit for the things that count. That kind of clarity is rare, and it's the product of enduring situations where she had to strip away everything unnecessary just to keep moving. There's also a spiritual depth to resilience. When no friends are there, she learns to build her own connection with something bigger than herself. Whether it's faith, creativity, or a vision for her future, she taps into it deeply. That higher connection becomes her partner, her companion, her guide. It's why she doesn't break easily because her roots are planted in something solid, not in people who could walk away. Resilience makes her unshakable because her foundation is internal, not external. People come and go, opinions change, circumstances shift, but her strength comes from within, and that inner source can't be taken. Resilience makes her a leader without even trying. People might not know her story, but they see how she handles pressure, how she stays composed, how she keeps moving, even when she's clearly carrying more than most. That inspires others. Even if she doesn't have friends, she still becomes a role model for those watching from the sideline. Her resilience silently teaches others that you don't need a crowd to stand tall. You don't need applause to validate your fight, and you don't need company to keep pushing forward. Sometimes resilience itself is the loudest voice in the room, speaking through presence, not words. Every obstacle she faces becomes a stepping stone. Rejections, heartbreaks, failures, they sting, but they don't stop her. She learns to reframe setbacks as setups for her growth. A door closing pushes her to build her own door. A betrayal teaches her how to trust herself more. A failure forces her to improve until she's unrecognizable from the person who first attempted. That cycle of loss and recovery becomes her rhythm. Others might call it unlucky, but she calls it preparation. She knows every test is shaping her into someone who can handle the blessings waiting down the line. Without resilience, blessings crush people. With resilience, blessings multiply because she knows how to manage weight. Even when the world doubts her, her resilience carries her forward. She's heard people whisper that she can't do it alone, that she'll crumble without support, that she's missing something by not having friends. But every time she proves them wrong, her resilience grows louder than their voices. It's not about proving them wrong for their sake. It's about proving to herself that she can carry herself, that she's built to last. Resilience for her is not temporary strength. It's permanent conditioning. It's who she becomes after life keeps trying to break her and failing every time. A woman with no friends learns early that if she waits for someone else to clap for her, she'll be waiting forever. Validation is scarce when you walk alone, so instead of chasing approval, she learns to chase vision. Vision becomes her compass, her fire, her source of momentum. Most people get caught in cycles of trying to impress others, trying to belong, trying to prove their worth through someone else's eyes. But when you don't have friends, there's nobody there to hand you those little boosts of confidence. The absence forces her to look inward and create a picture of her life so vivid that it pulls her forward without anyone needing to push her. Vision is what makes her get up when validation is missing. Vision is what keeps her consistent when nobody notices her effort. Vision is what keeps her alive when loneliness tries to crush her spirit. She understands that validation is temporary. Even if people cheer for you, it fades quickly. People have short attention spans and their support is often shallow, but vision is permanent if you commit to it. A woman with no friends doesn't have the luxury of leaning on compliments, likes, or praise, so she learns that the only opinion that truly matters is the one she holds about herself. That's why her grind looks different. She's not working for claps, she's working for clarity. Every step she takes is aligned with something bigger than the moment, something that stretches into her future. Vision keeps her honest because she knows faking progress just to look good in front of others is pointless when there's nobody around to witness it anyway. She works in silence and her vision is the only audience she needs. This focus on vision builds a different level of discipline. Without validation, there's no instant gratification. There's no one saying good job after every small win. So she learns how to delay rewards, how to keep grinding even when it feels like nobody cares. That kind of patience separates her from people who move only when they're being watched. She doesn't stop when the spotlight's off because there is no spotlight in the first place. She creates her own rhythm, her own pace, her own reward system. When she hits a milestone, she doesn't need likes on social media to prove it happened. She knows it happened, and that's enough. Her vision pushes her to keep stacking wins until the world has no choice but to notice. Vision over validation also means she's not distracted by the noise of comparison. When you have friends, it's easy to measure yourself against them. Who's moving faster? Who's shining brighter? Who's making more progress? But a woman with no friends doesn't play that game because she has no competition except herself. Her only question is whether she's closer to her vision than she was yesterday. That makes her progress pure. She doesn't waste time trying to outdo others. She spends her energy outdoing her old self. That separation from comparison makes her dangerous because she's fully focused on her lane. People can't predict her next move because she's not moving based on them. She's moving based on something invisible, something only she can see, something rooted in the vision she built for herself. Vision also gives her resilience when failure shows up. Without validation, there's nobody there to cushion the fall, nobody there to reassure her that it's okay. But she doesn't break because she knows failure is part of the path to her vision. She doesn't stop at rejection because rejection doesn't erase the vision. She doesn't stop when she's tired because tiredness doesn't erase the vision. She doesn't stop when people doubt her because their doubts don't erase the vision. Her vision is untouchable by outside forces, and that makes her unstoppable. The world can try to shake her, but they can't see the image in her head, the blueprint in her mind, the story she's writing silently with every sacrifice she makes. Living with vision over validation also transforms the way she values herself. She doesn't see her worth in likes, attention, or how many people call her on her birthday. She sees her worth in the fact that she's walking towards something meaningful, something that aligns with her heart and her soul. She knows people can be fake with validation. They'll clap for you one day and disappear the next. They'll cheer for you publicly and envy you privately. But vision doesn't lie to her. Vision doesn't switch up. Vision is consistent as long as she keeps her eyes on it. That trust builds an unshakable foundation within her, a sense of self-worth that isn't up for negotiation. This commitment to vision makes her sacrifices make sense. She might miss parties, she might skip trends, she might walk away from temporary pleasures, but she doesn't feel like she's missing out. She knows exactly what she's aiming for, and the vision makes the sacrifice feel worth it. People might not understand her choices, they might think she's antisocial or detached, but she doesn't need them to understand. She's not living for their approval, she's living for something that will outlast all of them. And when the results finally manifest, when her vision becomes reality, the same people who didn't validate her will want to claim they always believed in her. That's the irony of chasing validation. It's never there when you need it, but vision never leaves your side if you're committed to it. In time, vision gives her something validation never could: legacy. Validation is about the moment, but vision is about the story you leave behind. A woman with no friends knows her life can't just be about being liked or fitting in, because she doesn't fit in by default. So instead of forcing herself into spaces that don't value her, she builds her own. She focuses on creating something lasting, something that will speak for her, even when she's not in the room. And when she looks back, she won't measure her life by how many people approved of her. She'll measure it by how closely she lived out her vision and how much of that vision became reality. That's what keeps her moving with her head high, even when she walks alone. Independence for a woman with no friends isn't just about being alone. It's about realizing that she doesn't need a crowd to validate her moves. She doesn't need someone holding her hand to walk her path. And she doesn't need to borrow energy from people just to keep going. Independence becomes her superpower because it forces her to depend on herself. And when you depend on yourself long enough, you realize how unstoppable you really are. People who are used to leaning on others often don't know their own weight, but she knows hers. She carries it every day, and every time she lifts it, she grows stronger. That strength becomes part of her identity, and soon the world can't deny it. Independence gives her freedom from expectations. When you have friends, people want you to act a certain way, dress a certain way, think a certain way, and fit into the mold of the group. But when you walk alone, you don't have to shrink or adjust yourself for anybody. She learns how to live in her truth without compromise. Her style, her choices, her pace, her goals, everything belongs to her. Nobody else gets to put their fingerprints on her decision. That kind of freedom is rare because most people move according to someone else's approval. Independence means she answers to herself, and that makes her untouchable in a world built on peer pressure and outside opinions. Power shows up in how she makes moves. Because she doesn't have people to split responsibilities with, she becomes capable of wearing many hats. She learns how to budget, how to strategize, how to problem solve, how to fix things most people would outsource. Independence makes her resourceful. She doesn't freeze when problems come up because she knows nobody's going to swoop in and save her. She doesn't complain about not having help. She builds skills instead. And every skill she learns becomes another weapon in her arsenal, another layer of power that can't be taken away. While others may crumble when their support systems collapse, she thrives because her support system has always been herself. Independence teaches her the value of saying no. A lot of people get caught up in obligations because they're scared of losing friends, scared of being judged, scared of disappointing someone. But a woman with no friends doesn't live by those fears. She knows that protecting her time and energy is her first responsibility. If something doesn't serve her vision, she cuts it off. If someone doesn't bring peace, she doesn't keep them around. Independence gives her permission to be selective, to build boundaries, to stand firm. And the more she honors those boundaries, the stronger her sense of self becomes. That's power in its purest form. The ability to decide who and what gets access to you. This independence also spills into her mindset. She doesn't need permission to dream big. She doesn't need someone else to tell her it's possible. She doesn't need encouragement to start. She knows her life is hers alone, and she takes ownership of it completely. That's why she moves different. She doesn't wait for the perfect moment or for someone to hold her accountable. She holds herself accountable. She knows nobody's coming to remind her to stay disciplined, so she develops an inner voice that pushes her harder than any friend ever could. That voice becomes her coach, her mentor, her motivator, and over time, it makes her unstoppable. Independence makes her dangerous in the best way because it removes fear. Most people fear being abandoned, fear being left out, fear standing alone, but she's already living that reality and she's thriving in it. What can you take from someone who's built everything on their own? What can you threaten her with when she's already been through the silence, the solitude, the self-doubt? Independence builds a fearless spirit because she's not scared of losing people. She never had them to begin with. That fearlessness gives her an edge because she moves without hesitation, without attachment, without the need for approval. Financially, independence changes everything too. A woman with no friends doesn't waste money trying to keep up with the group, doesn't spend energy proving she belongs, doesn't blow resources on being accepted. Instead, she learns how to control her own finances, invest in herself, and stack her resources. She might not be the loudest in the room, but her independence makes her stable, and stability is power. When you don't depend on others for survival, you gain the ability to make choices based on freedom, not desperation. She's not easily manipulated because nobody can dangle support over her head. She supports herself, and that independence allows her to walk away from situations that don't serve her without hesitation. Independence also gives her pride. Not the kind of pride that makes you arrogant, but the kind of pride that comes from knowing you built yourself. She doesn't have to thank anyone for carrying her. She doesn't owe anyone credit for her survival. Everything she's earned has her fingerprints on it, and that creates a sense of dignity that nobody can strip away. People might gossip, people might doubt, people might throw shade, but at the end of the day, she knows the truth. She did it on her own. That pride is not about proving herself to the world. It's about proving to herself that she's capable of standing tall without a crowd holding her up. And eventually, independence becomes magnetic. People who once overlooked her begin to notice her strength. They see her moving with power, with clarity, with confidence, and they wonder how she does it without a circle of support. That's when they realize independence is not a weakness, it's a strength they wish they had. She becomes the type of person who inspires without even trying, because her very existence challenges the lie that you need people around you to thrive. Independence makes her proof that solitude doesn't mean weakness. It means freedom, it means control, it means power. Respect and silence is a weapon most people don't recognize until they meet someone who carries it naturally. A woman with no friends lives in silence more than anyone else because she doesn't have constant conversations, group chats, or noise surrounding her life. That silence could be seen as emptiness to some, but for her, it becomes power. Silence teaches her how to observe instead of rushing to talk, how to study people instead of trying to impress them, how to listen to her own voice instead of drowning it out with everyone else's opinions. She moves differently because she's not in a rush to be seen, she's not desperate to be heard, and she's not out here begging for attention. When she does speak, people listen because they know she's not wasting words. Respect and silence comes from that ability to let your presence speak louder than your mouth ever could. Most people give away too much. They talk about their dreams before they even start. They share their struggles with people who don't care. They explain their every move, hoping to be understood. A woman with no friends learns early that not everybody deserves access to her story. She doesn't broadcast every detail of her life because she knows most people don't truly care, and the ones who do might still use it against her. Her silence is not weakness, it's strategy. By keeping her moves quiet, she avoids unnecessary energy pulling her down. People underestimate her, think she's not doing much, think she's just existing, but that's part of the game. She lets them sleep on her while she builds in the shadows, and when the results show, there's nothing left for anyone to say. That's respect and silence, letting your wins talk for you. Her silence also gives her control. Words can be twisted, but silence can't. When she doesn't react to every insult, every rumor, every bit of negativity, she strips her enemies of power. People want her to argue, to defend herself, to lose her composure, but she doesn't give them that satisfaction. She knows silence hurts louder than any comeback. While others waste energy trying to clap back at everything thrown their way, she conserves hers and stays focused on her path. And the world respects that because self-control is rare. It's easy to explode, it's easy to gossip, it's easy to get pulled into drama, but it takes discipline to stay quiet and keep moving. That discipline is where respect grows. Silence makes her mysterious, and mystery commands attention. When you can't predict someone, when you don't know their every thought, when they don't expose their every emotion, you can't control them. That's why she becomes powerful without even trying. People can't figure her out, and what you can't figure out, you respect by default. While everyone else is oversharing, chasing validation, and putting their business out for judgment, she holds her cards close. That silence makes people curious, makes them wonder, makes them cautious. And in that caution lies respect, because people tread carefully around what they can't fully read. Her silence also allows her to see the world more clearly. When you're not busy talking, you're busy watching. She sees patterns in people. She catches small details others miss. She notices the difference between what someone says and what they actually do. That awareness protects her because it stops her from being naive. While others get blindsided because they were too busy talking, she's already prepared because she was listening. People respect her not because she's the loudest, but because she's the sharpest. And silence sharpens her. Knowledge is power, and silence is where she gathers it. There's also a spiritual element to respect and silence. Solitude and silence force her to connect with herself and whatever higher power she believes in. That connection gives her peace that others can't understand. While the world screams for attention and runs from being alone, she embraces it. She finds strength in meditating on her goals, clarity in journaling her thoughts, healing in simply sitting with her emotion. That inner work creates outer strength. And when people sense it, they respect it, even if they don't know why. Silence gave her wisdom, and wisdom radiates in her energy. People don't just hear it when she talks, they feel it when she walks into a room. Respect and silence also builds her reputation. Over time, people start to notice that she doesn't involve herself in mess, doesn't expose her personal struggles for pity, doesn't brag about her wins, doesn't beg for attention. They begin to realize she's different, and being different earns respect because it sets her apart in a world addicted to noise. She doesn't need to prove herself every day because her consistency does that for her. She doesn't need to explain her growth because her life shows it. She doesn't need to clap back at hate because her success silences it naturally. People respect her because she doesn't chase their respect. She earns it without asking. Her silence also protects her energy. Noise drains people. Attention invites negativity. Oversharing creates vulnerability. By staying quiet and private, she shields herself. She doesn't let just anybody into her world, and because of that, the few who do get access know they're stepping into something valuable. Silence makes her selective, and selectiveness makes her valuable. People respect what they can't easily access, and her life becomes an example of that. She's not easy to read, not easy to reach, not easy to use, and that difficulty makes her respected because everyone wants what's rare. Even when people doubt her, even when they misunderstand her, silence still gives her the last word. She doesn't need to defend herself because time always reveals the truth. While others are busy proving themselves in words, she's proven herself in results. And when the results show, silence turns into the loudest statement she could ever make. That's the ultimate respect in silence. Living in a way that even your quietest moments speak volumes. Loneliness for a woman with no friends is not just a feeling, it's a condition she learns to live with. At first, it can feel like a punishment, like a weight pressing down on her chest, reminding her that she doesn't have the support system others lean on. She doesn't get the casual phone calls, the hangouts, the comfort of knowing someone has her back. But over time, she begins to realize that loneliness doesn't have to stay as pain. Loneliness can be turned into a tool, a fuel, something she can transform into growth. Instead of letting the silence consume her, she uses it to create, to build, to dream, and eventually to leave behind something that will outlast her. That transformation is what turns loneliness into legacy. Loneliness gives her time. While others fill their days with endless social interactions, distractions, and empty conversations, she has hours of quiet to herself. Those hours could crush her if she wastes them, but instead she learns how to put them into work. She studies, she writes, she plans, she creates, she hustles. The solitude that once felt like punishment becomes the very reason she's able to advance further than people who always need company. She realizes that time is the most valuable currency, and loneliness blesses her with more of it. That time compounds into results, and those results start forming the foundation of her legacy. Loneliness also pushes her deeper into self-awareness. When you're alone, there's no hiding from yourself. You face your flaws, your fears, your insecurities, and your dreams with no filter. A woman with no friends has to deal with her own thoughts head on. It can be painful, but it sharpens her. She learns her triggers, her strengths, her weaknesses, and she starts shaping herself into someone stronger. That deep understanding becomes the soil where her legacy grows, because you can't build anything lasting if you don't first know who you are. People who are constantly surrounded by noise rarely get this depth, but her loneliness forces her into it, and that self-mastery becomes a gift. The silence of loneliness also sparks creativity. With nobody to distract her, her mind starts to build worlds. Ideas, visions, and innovations begin to flow in ways they wouldn't if her attention was scattered across countless social obligations. Many great works are born from solitude, and she embodies that truth. She takes the ache of being alone and flips it into something tangible, whether that's art, business, writing, or any form of creation. Her loneliness becomes the birthplace of her contribution, and those contributions are what write her name into history. Instead of letting her solitude break her, she lets it create something bigger than her. Loneliness trains her to find strength and independence, but it also shows her the importance of purpose. Without friends to live for, without crowds to impress, she needs a reason to keep moving. That reason becomes her purpose, and once she finds it, it becomes unstoppable. Purpose is the seed of legacy, and she waters it with every step she takes alone. Every sacrifice she makes, every hour she spends working in silence, every tear she cries in the dark, those all become investments into her purpose. And over time, purpose transforms her loneliness into something meaningful. Instead of loneliness being her weakness, it becomes her pathway to impact. Loneliness also gives her resilience, because she has to learn how to endure without comfort. That resilience allows her to chase long-term goals most people can't stick with. Building a legacy requires patience, discipline, and endurance, and she has all three, because her loneliness already trained her to keep walking without applause. Others give up when nobody pays attention to their progress, but she's been used to moving without attention all her life. That makes her dangerous in the best way, because she won't quit just because nobody's watching. She knows legacy is built in silence and revealed in time. Her loneliness even becomes her protection. Without friends, she avoids unnecessary drama, betrayal, and wasted energy. The absence of shallow connections forces her to only pour into herself and her goals. It may feel like a loss in the short term, but in the long term, it keeps her focused, unbroken, and uncorrupted. While others spend years fixing damage caused by toxic friendships, she's been building consistently, uninterrupted. That consistency is what allows her to leave something behind that others can look at and respect. Legacy isn't built on chaos, it's built on clarity, and her loneliness gives her more of it than most people ever experience. When people finally see her results, they often forget the loneliness that built them. They admire her success, her resilience, her creation, her story, without realizing it was written in empty rooms and long nights of silence. That's the irony of legacy. People celebrate the outcome, but rarely understand the process. But she doesn't need them to understand. She knows the truth. She knows her legacy was born from nights where nobody checked on her, mornings where nobody encouraged her, seasons where she only had herself to count on. That knowledge makes the legacy even more powerful, because it's proof that you don't need a village to build something meaningful. You can build it from nothing but yourself. And eventually, her story becomes inspiration for others walking through loneliness. They see in her an example that solitude doesn't have to destroy you, it can build you. They realize that their own empty rooms might be filled with potential instead of pain. Her legacy becomes a blueprint, a reminder that loneliness is not the end, it's the beginning of greatness if you use it right. She transforms personal isolation into a public gift, and that's the ultimate flip. Taking what was once her struggle and turning it into something that empowers generations after her. So when you hear the words, "a woman with no friends," don't picture weakness, don't picture emptiness, don't picture someone left behind. Picture self-reliance sharpened into strength. Picture resilience built in silence. Picture a vision so clear it don't need applause. Picture independence that moves like power. Picture respect earned not from loud talk but from quiet presence. Picture loneliness flipped into legacy. That woman isn't asking to be saved. She's showing you what survival looks like when survival turns into success. She's proof that you don't need a crowd to create impact. You don't need a team to chase purpose. And you don't need constant validation to know your worth. She's walking evidence that isolation can be transformed into elevation. And if her story tells you anything, it's this. Standing alone doesn't mean you're alone. It means you're strong enough to carry yourself. In a world full of noise and fake connections, sometimes the loudest message, the deepest respect, and the greatest legacy comes from the one woman who learned to thrive without friends.